All right, guys, welcome back. I'm going to be doing asks today. I'm not sure how many of them I'll get through, if it'll just be one video or two. I have quite a few of them, but again, because I haven't done them in 3 or 4 weeks, that's why. So I'm going to try to do enough videos to get through them all. So yeah, let's just hop right in. Um, I've been rewatching some of your older videos that talk about the missing 17 days. The phrase dead weight in reference to Beth's body keeps sticking out to me. Mainly because of the governor's episode of that name. The live bait episode title makes me think of Gabriel's utterings about sacrificing one of their own. The governor was gone without a trace and then reappeared later. He is a serious character. He is. In his 2 episodes, he burns down Woodbury, then wanders about, is almost going to let himself die when he spots a child at a window and goes to look. He is given food and doesn't eat it. Reminds me of Beth at Grady. He goes to the nursing home and gets attacked by Walker orderlies, people in scrubs. Later, he meets a past figure that thought he was dead. He kills the leader of the new group and takes over. Beth didn't directly kill Dawn, but maybe she took over, or maybe she leads a different group. The governor in season 4 is now under Gimple direction. The name he assumes is Brian Harriet. Brian is probably a callback to the comics, which is his actual name, and Philip was his brother, and at some point he takes that name. However, Harriet is surely a Gimple name, so over to the etymology. I love it. um, okay, it means army, equipment, or trappings. So initial meaning a death duty requiring a nobleman to return military equipment, horses, swords, etc., to his king. Later meaning a feudal payment or relief made by a tenant to a lord upon the tenant's death, often consisting of the deceased best animal or chattel. So we have a reference to army, equipment, or traps. Made me think of Mitch with his tank. There's also reference to death and payments to a king. Do you think there are links between Beth and the governor, some foreshadowing of someone being gone and rebuilding an identity? They both last appear together in Tyrese's hallucinations. Yes, I absolutely think that there are ties between Beth and the governor. And don't get me wrong, I think the governor is dead. He's not coming back, all of that. But I think that they were using him as a foreshadow. And it's especially important um, and this is probably another thing I need to go back over. Like I said, I've been wanting to do some deep dives into various things. One of them is the chess symbol, which is around the governor a lot. He had that chess piece that symbolized him, and it was the king, which, in chess, the king is not the most powerful piece, the queen is. But the little girl, Megan, drew the eye patch on it. And then once the governor dies, we actually see that chess piece being trampled. And I think that's to show that he was trying to make himself the king. And then that was him falling. That was the end of his arc and his character. But I do think that they used him to symbolize Beth. If you go back and watch those 2 episodes of The Governor, it's nuts how much serious symbolism is in it. There's a lot of yellow, there's a lot of fire. There is a female walker who crawls through the fire and tries to get him when he's first alone. And so it's literally a blonde female walker who's on fire and reaching for him. I mean, there's so much of it that is really potent symbolism. And like you said, that this is when Gimple took over. So I think it's especially important that it was happening there in season 4, which was before we were really looking for much of this stuff. So yeah, this is really, really interesting. Like I said, I need to do a deep dive into it, and I'm not going to go into all of the details here, but I feel like it is indicative of Beth's arc in a lot of ways. But it's just darker because he's a villain. You know what I mean? So not like everything one to one is going to be what happens with Beth, but like you said, he goes away and it's from his point of view for a little while, so we don't get any of Team Family in episode, what is that, 6 or 7, until like the very end we see them when he returns to the prison. And like you said, he goes to a different place, he meets other people, and then we see him coming back, and he was always a villain. We've said Beth may be with a villainous group, but the other thing that equipment makes me think of is, so this was so long ago, you guys, only probably the OGers are going to remember this, but there was a whole thing about a Beth figurine coming out back when McFarlane Toys was still doing Walking Dead figurines. I think they went out of business, and they had one that was supposed to be her with a bear trap, and so it's just like the little, when she stepped on the small game trap in Alone and hurt her ankle, it's like that, but it's an actual bear trap, which is much bigger. It's the kind of thing that would actually clamp around your whole leg. And we actually saw the doctor from that was with the Saviors. I'm not going to remember his name right now, but there was one. It was the one where Gabriel got infected with the stuff that made him lose his eye, and he was with that doctor. That doctor had been, or no, maybe he wasn't. No, he wasn't. I'm sorry, he wasn't with the Saviors. His brother was with the Saviors. This doctor was at Hilltop and was the one who first examined Maggie. Anyway, he dies in that episode, and he steps in a bear trap, and there's a lot of serious symbolism there and symbolism around here of him that is tied to Beth. And anyway, it's just they're old theories, right? Other times that we saw the symbolism. So there was something about her in a bear trap, and that kind of is what this makes jump out to me is the idea of equipments or traps. It reminds me of that. And then for some reason they discontinued that figurine. It never actually came out, but some of the TDers who were digging found plans for it and even corresponded with someone at the company who said, yeah, we were going to make that, but it ended up, they went a different way and we didn't end up making it. But there's something about this trap, right? And I don't know if it's meant to be symbolic of a trap or if it's literal. I don't know. But I also think that whatever that was also foreshadowed by the trap she stepped in Alone, which again could be figurative. And I think it is figurative one way or the other, but it may also be literal. And I think the trap was that her and Daryl were about to step into this trap that was going to end up leading to her getting shot and them being separated. So at the beginning of Alone, before she gets taken, there's this symbolism of her stepping in a trap, right? Anyway, so really, really interesting. Well, let's see, what else was I going to say? Call back to the comics. Army is a big one, CRM, and we already saw armies, or at least military uniforms around the governor because he killed all the guys in the helicopter. So that also could have been a foreshadow of the CRM. So yeah, I mean, we don't really know how it's all going to work out and what it's going to lead to, but this is super interesting. So thanks for doing this. And I will try to do another deep dive on this. I will put it down on my list. We'll see how much I get through before the next season of whatever we're getting next comes out. But yeah, this is one of the things I want to deep dive on because I would recommend everybody go watch the Governor's episodes, even though a lot of people thought of them as really boring because they didn't have Team Family in them. And I understand, especially when it was on TV and you're looking forward to an episode and you get this episode that doesn't have any of our favorite characters in it. Like that's frustrating. But now to go back and watch them from a TD and a symbolism standpoint is really interesting. Everything in that funeral home he goes to, I mean, there's literally a blonde walker with stigmata wounds in her feet, which are like, it looks like her feet are pierced like Jesus's were on the cross. And this chair she's in is yellow and it's a hospital setting. I mean, it just everything screams Beth, right? The fact that there are people who are tied to the gurneys, they were unable to leave and that sort of thing. So to me, it's very clearly a foreshadow of Beth's arc. And that's just yet another way to say there's no way that they created this arc and then changed it 2 episodes earlier to kill off Beth. Like there's so much evidence, specifically in season 4, that they already had everything planned. So there's no way that they suddenly changed their mind and decided to kill off Beth. Like that just doesn't even make sense. Anyway, so thank you for this. I'll stop rambling about it now, but I will try to do more of a deep dive on it later. Oh, let's see. Okay. You know me and my symbolism crash outs. Yes, I love them. First off, hair cutting has a lot of symbolism around it. It can mean letting go of the past, which you kind of touched on when you talked about Daryl cutting his hair to cut away the shields he wears, the comfort blanket. I thought you worded that nicely. Let's see. It can also mean a new beginning. Haircuts are often joked about being a sign a woman is trying to move on after a breakup. It's that at times, yes, but it's also back to letting go of the past, but it's also giving yourself a new look to start over and have a new beginning. If you all are right about the coda meaning, then maybe this is the start over point, finally, for the coda in Daryl and Beth's song, so to speak. Haircuts are also associated to personal growth. We've seen Daryl go through a lot, but we haven't seen him truly move on from parts of who he was. Beth said it, you got to stay who you are, not who you were. Daryl has been holding on to a lot of old ways, even if it doesn't seem like it. He talked about how he always was running and moving from place to place. This might be his growth, his inner growth showing on the outside in a way, symbolic. Also, a hairstyle can age or de-age. Is that a word? It is now. A person, which I'm going to get a little TD for me here. But I made that post about Norman's character in Death Stranding 2 having the scene with Lucy in the hospital. But long story short, they did an edit of Norman in the game as his younger looking like season 1 and 2 Daryl's self. Okay, so these are pictures of that. Interesting. Then the blue hospital gown, the carry-out pose. I've been thinking they've been fixing Daryl's hair and making him and Norman look younger lately. He still looks older, but they gave him less gray and have made him look different in Daryl Dixon, to me anyway. I think the haircut is forced on Daryl, but I think it's a force that will be symbolism of Daryl starting over. But it's also gonna let us see old seasons Daryl again, make us go back in time, so to speak. The last time Daryl's hair was shorter was season 3. By season 4, he let it grow to his shoulders a bit. After Beth, he stopped caring and just let it grow wild and lost like him. So I do think this is forced on him, but I think it's going to be a good thing from a bad situation symbolically, if that makes sense. Yeah, it does. It could also be, as you kind of pointed out, a mirroring for Beth. Brain surgery requires your head to be shaved. Your hair doesn't grow back like it did before the surgery. I don't think Beth is going to be rocking a Rihanna cut, but we might see signs of that surgery mark on her head. What I'm very curious about are what look like scars and cuts on Daryl's face. They come off like tribal markings almost. Norman really likes to stir the tampon. He does. I think he has fun. Yeah, no, I totally agree with everything you've said here, though. I mean, people have pointed out that it looks like there might be a scar there, so they may have shaved it to do some sort of surgery on him. But yeah, I agree. I mean, just because there's a reason for it in the plot doesn't mean that it's not also symbolic. So, and that's one thing that I get a little frustrated with people about when that's all they have to come back with is, no, this is why. And they're giving a plot example. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, there has to be a reason in the plot or it wouldn't make sense. But the symbolism is still there. So I don't know that I have a lot to add. I agree with everything you said, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens in the hospital setting. And yeah, this definitely does seem, I mean, I always say I don't like to look outside of the TWD universe for symbolism just because we can't 100% count on it. But I mean, over the years, I still do think that both Norman and Emily have taken roles that have mirrored their Walking Dead arcs, and Death Stranding seems to be doing that too, at least to a certain extent. I mean, of course, it'll always be more loyal to whatever story the game is trying to tell, but that doesn't mean they can't throw in some symbolism if it doesn't affect their plot too much, you know? So I totally agree. So thank you for this. This is really interesting. And yeah, I do think too that, I guess I didn't say this when I talked about the hospital setting. Yeah, if we don't see her before then, I don't think there's any way that that could not be us moving into the next arc, you know? So yeah, I totally agree. Well said. Very well said. Thank you. Um, Emily posted, I cried when you died and then a coming soon. What does that mean? Most people think it's a song that's going to be on her new album. But you know, heaven knows we have found plenty of symbolism and parallels in past songs and past albums. So I think the same will be here. And, you know, as we already saw, there's people speculating that this will be the name of the album. I actually hope that it is because that would be awesome in terms of the symbolism. So we're all just waiting to see exactly what that means. Granny TWD, this is the follow-up comment on the comment about Carol and Isabel's off-the-shoulder tops after they were wounded. I understand why they weren't perfect parallels, but after seeing Valentina wounded and another off-the-shoulder shirt, I'm like, come on. This is not for nothing. They are telling us something. Could it just be a lovely nod to T. Deers for picking up on the subtle but intentional slip off the shoulder of Beth's sweater in 401? One more reminder to us that they are still telling Beth and Daryl's story. Probably. And you know, I mean, I had this thought. We haven't talked about it a lot. But Valentina is, to some extent, I do think she's meant to be a Beth parallel. It's not super obvious in her story, and it's not like a one-to-one, she's exactly like Beth, you know, has the scars like Isabelle did. No, nothing like that. But people did notice her. She is the blonde in the opening credits who's on the bridge. Okay, so we've got blonde, we've got bridge, which is a big deal, right? She's good friends with Carol, which Beth and Carol were good friends, but I also think it's a matter of her being sort of a foil to Carol because in terms of Daryl and Carol's relationship versus Daryl and Beth's relationship, you know, there's so many differences there. And so, you know, of course, well, let's even just talk about her as being a foil to Carol. I mean, it's like they're not exactly the same, but I love Valentina and Carol's friendship. I think they're so fun together. And where Carol is more hesitant and more stuffy, and then Valentina is more free love kind of person, and she gives Carol crap about that, right? But in a loving and affectionate sort of way. I mean, that's kind of how Carol. I mean, yeah, how Carol and Beth were. I mean, obviously not that exactly that circumstance, but just in that they were very different. You know, Carol is more like Daryl in the way that she processes things and the way that she tends to be self-destructive when she's in her grief. And Beth is more like Valentina in that she's more relaxed and doesn't let things bother her and doesn't become really destructive like that, and is just kind of loving and kind to everybody. And so I do think that in a lot of ways, Valentina is meant to be a little bit of a mirror of Beth. And not that Valentina and Daryl have much of a relationship or anything, but you know, she is the character who's all, pro love, pro romance. Everybody should be hooking up and all of that. And then he comes in and she's injured. And like you said, her shirt has fallen off her shoulder. And I think that's probably intentional, even though, of course, Valentina and Daryl are not in a relationship, nor will they ever be. There still is something there that they did that on purpose. So I do agree with you. And yeah, I mean, it could be just a nod to us, but I think that they use the symbolism very intentionally, and it just could be that the shirt off the shoulder thing, it could show romance, and like I said, of course it's not romance between Daryl and Valentina, but Valentina almost like personifies romance. Like if romance were a a person or an archetype, it would be Valentina, right? But then we did see the off the shoulder thing with Isabelle, and she was injured, and Valentina was injured. We saw the off the shoulder thing with Beth. She was not physically injured, but it could have been a foreshadow of an injury because we did see the red cloak or whatever it was, poncho behind her in the cell. Or it could just represent romance in a situation in general. We don't really know exactly why they decide to do that when they do it, but it's not like it happens all the time. So I do think it's being intentionally used. So yeah, that's a great point. And I love it. Like I said, I really like Valentina. I hope she doesn't get killed. And I like her and uh, not romance, her and Carol's friendship. And I mean, even the fact that Daryl was kind of snarky to Valentina when he was going, nope, and he was talking about, that he and Carol have never hooked up or anything. I don't know, in a way that maybe kind of mirrors him and Beth fighting because she challenges him just enough to get under his skin, and Beth did that too. Anyway, so you get the idea. So yeah, thanks for that. I enjoy thinking about that. All right, where are we at? I think I can do another one or two. Okay, so now the season is over. What are you and your friends thinking? Um, what are your thoughts about where it's going and what will happen next? Please tell me you have something. Okay, I think this is the same one, isn't it, that I used for the video about where we think it's going. So rather than going through all of that again, just go back and watch Asks 168. That is where I talk about where we think it's going next and where Daryl's head is at. And then, of course, we have this whole hospital situation that's been leaked. So hopefully you have figured out more since you sent this in. I was really disappointed that we didn't see Beth and Dakota in season 3. I was so sure it was going to happen. I mean, all good things come in threes, and it was the third season. It was TWD, big 15-year anniversary. It just made so much sense that we should have seen her in season 3. I don't get it. I really thought season 4 would be named The Book of Beth. We are now 19 episodes into Daryl's spinoff and still no Beth. I just don't get why they wouldn't have revealed her. I still know she is coming, and you are always so positive, but I want to know, how did you feel about it after the finale? How I feel about it hasn't really changed. I mean, of course, we're all disappointed not to have seen her, but I don't know. And I can't help but thinking, I said this before, I can't help but thinking that maybe it's really more of an outside the show thing, and it might be a legal thing that they needed to give themselves some space to, I don't know, figure some things out. And yeah, I mean, I get it. It's taking forever, but especially if, so I've seen a few different things. I mean, if it was a matter of they were never going to reveal her in the spinoff, then, you might say, well, then why do the spinoffs? Like I said, I feel like they needed a couple of years to breathe and get some other stories in place before they moved into this story. And I even think it might have a lot to do with Andrew Lincoln and getting everyone back together into one mainstream show or like another flagship show that everyone's going to be in. I don't know why that would be, but we do know that they ended the original flagship because of streaming rights. In fact, I'm seeing this play out with a different show right now. I don't know if any of you have paid any attention to this, but shows like Supernatural are leaving Netflix right now, and it's because they had the same contract that Walking Dead used to have. And it's like the OG Netflix contract. So back in, 2010 to 2015, when Netflix was the only major streaming service, and everybody was wanting to get on Netflix because that was the most lucrative thing to do, they signed these contracts, and they really were in the best interest of the shows back then. But these contracts said that Netflix had 100% exclusive rights to stream the show until the show ended, and then for 5 years after the show ended. So the reason Walking Dead ended their flagship show is because things have changed. Everybody has a streaming service now. Every network has one. AMC has their own. And they literally could not put their own show on their own streaming platform because they had this um, contract with Netflix, right? So they ended it. And then 5 years after they end it, excuse me, then it will leave Netflix, the flagship show, and they will be able to stream it on their own platform. But if they do these spin-offs, they don't have those contracts with Netflix for the spin-offs. So those they can put on their own platforms. And then after 5 years, we'll probably see The Walking Dead, which is on Netflix right now, leave Netflix, and then it will be on AMC Plus. So the same thing is happening with Supernatural. It ended 5 years ago in 2020, and now it's leaving Netflix, and it's probably going to pop up. I want to say it's HBO that the WB owns, so it'll probably, unless I'm wrong about that, it's whichever one the WB owns, it'll probably pop up there. It's just not going to be on Netflix anymore. So we're kind of seeing this with a few shows as these contracts expire from these bigger, well-known, sci-fi type of shows. Anyway, so I don't know what the legalities would be, but maybe it's even a matter of after they ended the flagship, they needed to give it a few years to wait for things to expire or something like that before they could put everyone back together into a main show. And if that's the case, they didn't want to just not, create any more episodes for anyone for 5 years or however long it was going to be. So they did these spin-offs and they could tell these, everything they've said, they could tell these little niche stories and deep dive into some of these characters and, do some things that they wanted to do. And so it's just been fun to kind of explore, but we're now getting to the point where it sounds like they're going to be putting everyone back together into the main show again. So again, I don't know exactly what the logic is. I have heard someone say that originally there was going to be more like 5 to 6 seasons of the Daryl show. And so maybe we were always going to see Beth in season 5, which would mirror season 5 from the flagship show. And again, that's just conjecture. We don't know for sure. And then it got cut short. And if it, so they're going to be going back to the main show. And if that's the case, it's just because they went, okay, well, instead of doing that, let's put everyone back into a flagship show. And so we'll continue the story there. I do think that they were always going to reveal his love interest because of what Judith says, her voiceover at the beginning of season 1. We still haven't really seen that come to pass. I mean, there was Isabelle, but Judith specifically talked about a happy ending. And clearly, Isabelle was not his happy ending. She died, so couldn't possibly be his happy ending, no matter how he felt about her. So it's got to still be coming. So I feel like even if they don't do much with Beth in season 4, at least they will have to reveal her because they have to reveal what his happy ending is going to be. So even if they had to change a little bit because it was cut short, I still feel like we'll get something about his happy ending before the end. And the last season is next season. So we have to get something there, right? So I mean, I get it. I understand your frustration, but every single thing that happens and the more we get and the more episodes and the more seasons we get just makes me feel like we're closer and closer and closer. And so hopefully with this hospital, arc that they're doing in season 4, hopefully that will be the bridge to actually seeing her. But it does sound like to me that they're going to be going back to a different show. So maybe most of, I mean, after she's revealed, let's say she's just revealed at the end of the season, they could do a spinoff where they show us the missing 17 days and lots of stuff about Beth. They could do that. And I kind of hope that they do. But even if they don't, that just means that they're going to be putting it back into the main show. And that's where we'll see most of the story between her and Daryl. So either way, I'm not worried. I still feel like it's coming. I understand your frustration. I really do. I had hoped that we would see her in season 3 as well. But I just think that for whatever reason, it's just taking a long time to get there. And it probably has a lot to do with what's going on behind the scenes that we are not aware of. But I think they are going to get there. We just have to be patient and wait for it. So I don't know if that makes you feel any better, but I hope it does. All right, guys, I'm going to call it there. And I will be back later, probably next week, with some more videos because I did not get through all of the asks, so I've got more. And so yeah, everybody have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!